Boom.
Hey YouTube, we're going to read all of the cards in Zendikar Rising and tell you what we think about it. I'm going to talk about Limited, that is Draft and Sealed, and that's all I'm going to be commenting on.
I'm going to be commenting about Standard. Strictly M21 Standard and past that.
Yeah, it's about when this actually releases, all the previous sets are going to rotate. So
yeah, pretty much.
We're going to use a letter grade system from A to F. A being super playable, B being pretty playable, C being in the middle, D being mostly not playable, and F being
completely not
never playable. And then S tier cards will be in their own.
They see play no matter what, basically.
Yeah, easy enough, right?
So the card's highlighted up on the screen. Craig, you want to start?
So first card we're going to be doing is Allied Assault. It costs 2 and a white at instant. It says up to 2 target creatures each get +X/+X until end of turn, where X is the number of creatures in your party.
Because it's an uncommon, because it's a party card, I think it's pretty bad. I'd probably give it a D tier
For standard.
Yeah, I don't think this sees any play unless the party mechanic is way better than I'm giving it credit for, but I don't really see a whole lot of big payoffs for it out of all the cards. So just because of that, I think this card's not going to see very much play, if no play at all.
In Limited, it's going to be easier to get your stuff to stick to the board and just not block with it or not attack with it when you need to. And the fact that this targets 2 of your creatures is really, really good. And at instant speed, you're going to be able to use it as a combat trick. On average, I think you're probably going to have somewhere between 1 and 2 creatures in your party most of the time, so 1.5. So 3 mana to give creatures +1/+1 or +2/+2. If it's giving 2 creatures +1/+1, it's not good. If you get there on the party mechanic and you can get it to +2/+2 or even +3/+3, it's very good. So I'm going to give it overall a C for Limited.
All right. Not really much else to talk about until we get more of the cards. Next card is Angel of Destiny. It's a 3 and double white for a flying double strike. Cleric Angel creature. Whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, you and that player each gain that much life. At the beginning of your end step, if you have at least 15 more life than your starting life total, each player Angel of Destiny attacked this turn loses the game. So a lot to go over here. I think that this is definitely going to see standard play for sure. I think this is a build-around card. I don't know if you run 2 or 3 of them in the deck that you're trying to play it at because it's a 5 cost, but definitely minimum of 2. It's got a lot of things. Craig brought up something to me yesterday that I didn't even think about. When a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, you and that player each gain that much life. So they still get dealt the damage, and then they gain the life, and I didn't even think about that when I first read the card. Didn't quite click. So you can technically kill them.
Yeah, you can still bring them to 0.
Yeah, you can still bring them to 0 and win the game with that. And you also, another thing to note is that you just have to attack with Angel of Destiny. You don't actually have to hit. So if you have 15 more life and Angel of Destiny attack the other player, then you win. I think that it is, I don't know, it's A tier, probably closer to B tier, honestly, in standard, just because you need a lot of support cards to make it work. It can just win you the game by itself without any other creatures on the board, but most of the time you're going to want some dorks on the board to try to get through. So yeah, I think it's solid. The fact that it's an Angel Cleric also is it's a benefit. I think if you're going to play it, you're going to probably play it in a mono white deck or maybe in a finisher in some control decks, but yeah, A tier.
In Limited, it's a cleric, so it fills that role in your party. It's clearly a bomb, right? It's a 2/6 flyer. It has double strike. Even though you're not actually getting your opponent down any life totals, it's still pretty good. You're not going to play this in all of your Limited decks that are white. You're not going to play it in a very, very aggressive deck that really wants to squeeze out those last few points of damage at the end, because it doesn't do that. It doesn't squeeze out those last few points of damage. It stalls the game out and makes it go a little bit longer, which might be what you want sometimes. I think you're still first picking this, don't get me wrong, but in pack 3 or sometimes even in pack 2, it might not swing you that way and you might end up passing this. But still a bomb. It's very first pickable. If you pack one pick open this, you're gonna take it almost no matter what. A.
Also, something to be of note: it doesn't actually have lifelink, so if it only deals damage to a creature, you don't gain life for that.
Correct. It does have to hit. Your creatures have to hit the player.
That's another caveat. So it's pretty balanced altogether. I would say it's a fair bomb.
Yeah, it's fair.
Which means it's probably garbage, and I probably overvalued it, but I really like it. So
next card is Angel Heart Protector. For 2 and a white, you get a 3/2 human cleric that says when Angel Heart Protector enters the battlefield, target creature you control gains indestructible until the end of turn.
Quickly for standard, I don't think this will see any play just because of its stat line. It's 3 mana for a 3/2. It does give something indestructible, which is of note, but there are cards in standard that do it better. So I think it's probably it's D tier.
Yeah, and you're going to be hearing that from him a lot about the commons. But it's a cleric in limited. A 3 mana 3/2 is a reasonable rate. It's not amazing, but it's fine. It'll trade for other 3-drops, and giving something indestructible until end of turn basically means you get to connect with an attack from whatever creature you already have on board. Fills the cleric role on your allies deck. It's going to be fine. It's not a bomb by any means, but it's a solid playable. C.
If it had one more health, it'd probably be playable in standard, but it doesn't. So, oh, sorry, wrong click. We'll get to that one in a second. Archon of Emeria, 2 colorless and white for a creature Archon flying. Each player can't cast more than 1 spell each turn. Non-basic lands your opponent control enter the battlefield tapped. This one's hard to evaluate. I think that it's probably a 1 of or 2 of in a control deck. By itself, it's a 3 mana 2/3 with flying, so it can fit into the UW Flyers deck. I think it's okay. I give it a C. I don't really see it making huge waves in the standard game, but I think that people will consider it if they really don't have any better rares to put in.
And in limited, it's a 3 mana 2/3 flyer, which is usually a fine card. It has a little bit of an upside where making your opponent's lands enter the battlefield tapped, non-basic lands anyway. Each player can't cast more than 1 spell each turn is kind of a drawback. In limited, if you can double spell, you want to, but you also don't want your opponents to double spell. But you'll play it as a 3 mana 2/3 flyer. In limited, it's fine. It's not going to pull you into white or anything. I think in limited, this is just a C.
Interesting. Double C grade.
The next card is Archpriest of Ionia. It's 1 white mana for an X2 human cleric creature. Archpriest of Ionia's power is equal to the number of creatures in your party, which can be anywhere from 0 to 4, or in this case, since it will be in play, 1 to 4. At the beginning of combat on your turn, if you have a full party, target creature gets +1/+1 and gains flying until end of turn.
I think that because I'm not valuing the party deck very highly, that makes this card worse. I think that the chances of you having a full party are better in standard than in limited, but I still don't think this creature is going to get there very often. Just because of the amount of removal, the amount of aggro that you're going to have to deal with, and the fact that it comes into play as a 1/2, it can't really trade up until you get at least 2 more creatures on the board, which makes it considerably worse. It's a rare card. I don't know. I think that if the party deck gets going, it'll probably be a B tier card, but it's right now with what until I know what the set is, I think that it's going to be a C tier, maybe even a high D tier card. It's not very good.
No. In limited, it's fine. It's a 1 mana 1/2 when it comes down. That's sometimes going to be a 1 mana 2/2. You're going to play this in any aggressive beatdown deck that you get. And if you really get there on party members, and I mean really, really get there, and you're able to get 3 or 4 out by turn 4 or 5, then this card will obviously excel. It's basically, at that point, a 5/3 flyer for 1 mana, and that's insane. But I don't think on average you're going to get there. I think on average it's going to be a 2/2 beatdown guy, and that's fine. It's actually, 1 mana 2/2 in limited. It's pretty good. It's probably a B. And if you really, really get there, you can make it sort of new heights. But I don't think that's going to happen. I give it a B.
The next we've got Attended Healer. It's 3 and 1 white mana for a core cleric creature. Whenever you gain life for the first time each turn, create a 1/1 white cat creature token. And then for 2 and white, you make another target cleric gain lifelink until the end of turn. It's a 2/3 stat line at uncommon. Because the life gain deck is so prevalent and they printed a worse Ajani's Pridemate, and with Angel of Destiny in the set as well, I think this card is going to see play. I think it's a slower card for sure, but I do think that white black clerics is going to be a deck that people are going to play. I don't know how good it's going to be, so I think that this is a solid B tier card, just because it makes you go wide. It has a stat line that lets it stick on the field for a little bit longer, and it has a mana sync ability that's not horrible. So, yeah, I think solid B tier.
In limited, a 4 mana 2/3 isn't a great rate, but it does fill your cleric role in your party decks. First time you gain life a turn, getting a cat is super good. Very going to incentivize you to play lifelink creatures. Going to incentivize you to gain life. If you can make a cat every turn with this, it's going to blow you away. The fact that it gives another cleric lifelink means it can't give it to itself. Mm-hmm. So alone, it doesn't make any cats, and that's a big deal. That makes it a lot worse, in my opinion. Because just a 4 mana 2/3 in a deck isn't going to do anything. If you don't have other clerics, it's a D. If you have other clerics that can attack, it's a C. It doesn't blow me away.
Like I said, in the deck that it's going to be in the cleric deck, it's gonna be a B tier. All right.
Next up, Canyon Jerboa. For 2 and a white, you get a 1/2 creature mouse with landfall. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, creatures you control get +1/+1 until end of turn.
I don't think that this is gonna see. Unless White Weenies is a deck, this is going to see any play in Standard at all. It's got Landfall, which makes it inherently better than a lot of other things because it just happens whenever you play a land. It's pretty uninteractable because of the mechanic that it has. I mean, I think it's because I don't think it's going to see any play, because it doesn't have a creature tag that actually is relevant, like cat or dog. It's probably a D tier in Standard. I think that if you're in a swarmy board, it can have its upsides. The payoff is pretty good. On average, it's giving 2 to 3 things +1/+1. So landfall, get +3/+3 is pretty good. But I don't think it's statted good enough to actually make any waves. So
I think it has a lot of similar issues in limited, where it's a 3 mana 1/2, which doesn't really impact the board at all. Even if you play a land every turn, it's a 3 mana 2/3 only on your turn. But giving your whole team +1/+1 is definitely a good thing. Glorious Anthem sees play for a reason. Giving your whole team +1/+1 is super good. And I think if you're in a very aggressive go wide deck, that you're going to play this most of the time. Otherwise, you probably don't want it. But it's solid. It's playable. You're going to play it in your aggressive decks. It's a C.
I get the best card in the set. Cliffhaven Sellsword. It's a 1 and white mana for a core warrior creature. Common, it's a 3/1. Aggressively statted. In Standard, it sees no play at all. So it's
our first F.
It's an F.
It's an F for you.
It doesn't see any play. Also, keep in mind, I don't think we said this. I know this kind of late in the video to say this, but we will be giving our evaluation at the end of what we think the best cards for each rarity are. So stick around towards the end of the video to hear what we have to say. But yeah, this is an F tier in Standard. I don't think it sees any play at all.
Yeah, even in limited, this card kind of sucks. It's a 3/1 for 2, which is very aggressively statted, and it does fill the warrior slot in your party. But in general, you want to kind of steer clear of X1s that don't have any text. The fact that it's a warrior brings it up a little bit, but I'm still going to give it a D. I think you want to avoid this if you can, but you'll play it if you have to. Next up, Dauntless Unity. For 1 and a white, it's an instant with Kicker, an additional 1 and a white, that says creatures you control get +1/+1 until end of turn. If the spell was kicked, those creatures get +2/+1 instead.
I also don't think this is going to see any play. Even in an aggressive deck, there's better ways to buff all your dudes. Having to pay 4 mana for +2/+1 for everything isn't really a good payoff when you can do it cheaper, more efficiently in either other colors or, you know, more static effects. I think that this is an F card as well. I don't think it sees any standard play. I could be wrong, but I don't think it's very good.
In limited, however, at instant speed, giving your whole team +1/+1 for only 2 mana can be quite good. It can devastate your opponent's board. It can also push you through for lethal a lot. The fact that it has Kicker to give everything +2/+1 actually makes it very good. We've seen other cards that cost 4 mana to give +2/+1 at instant speed be very, very successful in limited in the past. Again, like some of the other white cards I've already talked about, you only want to play this in a go-wide aggressive deck. But in those decks, it's going to excel, and you're going to play it a lot of the time. You don't want really more than your first, maybe second copy of it if you're really, really aggressive. But it's fine. You're never going to first pick it or anything. See.
Disenchant. 1 and a white, instant speed, common. Destroy target artifact or enchantment. The fact that it says destroy, not exile, there's a lot of graveyard effects in standard right now. There's going to continue to be a lot of graveyard effects in standard. It is pretty cheaply cost. I guess in a budget deck it could have its place, so I'm going to give it a D. It is spot removal for those pesky artifacts and enchantments, and there's going to be even more of them after this set comes out. So yeah, I think D is pretty solid. I don't think that you're going to like go out of your way to put it in there, but if you need a spell to fill a slot, it does its job pretty well. So
yeah, and in limited it kind of does the same thing where it just doesn't hit enough stuff out of the board. It can be decent if your opponent really has a lot of artifacts and enchantments, or a particular one that you really need to watch out for. And even in best of 1 limited with Magic the Gathering Arena and stuff, you don't even want to play these in your main board. It's an F in the main board and it's a D out of the sideboard.
Yeah, it's a D card altogether, but it has its place in the set, so I can see why.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
Next up, Emeria Captain. For 3 and a white, you get a 1/1 Angel Warrior creature at uncommon with flying and vigilance. And when Emeria Captain enters the battlefield, put a +1/+1 counter on it for each creature in your party, which is minimum 1, since it is a warrior.
Yeah, so it does basically, it's a 4 mana 2/2 most of the time. Some of the time it's a 4 mana 3/3 with flying and vigilance. You already know that I don't value the party deck very, very highly, so I think that if I'm doing a party deck, I don't want this creature in it, just because it's it doesn't pay off to have it very, very often. It does fit the warrior slot in your deck, but I don't know, it's not swinging enough to make enough of an impression on the board state. It can kind of do something sometimes. I think it's C at best, but I think most of the time this is a D card. I don't think you want to fill your slots with it. So,
and in limited, it's a little bit better. Flying and vigilance are both really good keywords, and a 4 mana 2/2 for that is not a great rate. But if you can make this a 4 mana 3/3 flying vigilance, you're going to be in really good shape. Which at 4 mana, on turn 2 or 3, especially in white, it's reasonable that you have a cleric in play. You might be able to make a 4 mana 3/3 flying vigilance happen pretty frequently. I think you're going to play this more often than not. The more I think about it, the more I look at these cards, I think you might be able to get 2 in your party in limited pretty easily. So I'm tempted to go B, but I think I'm just going to go C, because there is going to be times when it's a 4 mana 2/2 flying vigilance, and that's not very good. So C.
I mean, and I could be completely wrong about the party mechanic.
And me too. I don't think it's going to be that good either, but I think we can get 2 pretty reasonably. In limited, I think you can get 2 pretty reasonably.
We got Expedition Healer, 1 in a white for a core cleric at common. It's a 2/2 vigilance. Expedition Healer has lifelink as long as you control another cleric. In the cleric deck, it might see play in like the budget decks. If you really don't have one of the higher end ones, this might be a filler card. Um, 2/2, a 2/2 for 2 with vigilance is pretty good, and it sometimes has lifelink. You know, if you already have a board, it always has lifelink in that specific deck. In the party deck, it fills a slot, goes out on curve on turn 2. I don't know. I think it's, and you're gonna see this with a lot of these cards. Like, I think it's probably a D tier card. If the cleric deck or the party deck are actually good, it'll be a C tier card. You won't see, it won't see play in every one of those versions of those decks. It'll most of the time see it in the budget forms for people that just free to play or whatever in an arena that don't really have the money or the wild cards to get the more higher value ones. So yeah, D. Well, we'll say high D, low C.
D plus.
D plus. Yeah, it works. D plus.
Yeah, and limited, this is a solid playable. Alpine Watchdog is a good example. 2 mana, 2/2 vigilance that you played, and it was a dog, which made it better. This is a cleric, which makes it better, and it sometimes has lifelink. You're going to be pretty happy to play this in your 2-drop slot. But there are obviously more powerful things, but it's a C. Solid.
I don't know if the core tag is going to be relevant at all. I don't think it is.
I haven't seen it. And I may have missed a card or something when they did their big dump, but I don't think core is relevant. Next up, Farsight Adept. For 2 and a white, you get a core wizard creature at common. That's a 3/3. With when Farsight Adept enters the battlefield, you and target opponent each draw a card.
I think that if you do like a UW wizard deck, you might actually consider playing this in standard. Just because you draw a card. Yes, they also draw a card, but that's not always a bad thing. For a 3 mana 3/3, when you have a bunch of wizards that don't really have the best stat line, they're most of the time either very defensively statted or very aggressively statted. You don't really ever have like just a mid-range body like this. So it's a D plus card again, I think. Because it's at common, it'll fill that budget deck form, but I don't think it's gonna change the game or anything. Which again, you're gonna hear that a lot. I think it's another D plus. So
way to go for the commons, huh?
Yeah.
In limited, I think this card's great. It's a 3 mana 3/3 in white, which is nuts. It's a wizard, so that's a third party type you can get just playing white already. You and your opponent both getting to draw a card is a slight drawback, but for a 3 mana 3/3 body in white, that's fine. And you can finesse your deck to where a card for you is probably better than a card for your opponent. Maybe your deck's filled with removal spells or big creatures that you really need to find. Man, I am tempted. This is a B. This is a good card. You're gonna first pick this out of some weaker packs, especially in pack 2 or 3 when you're already in white. This card's great. B. I'm really rooting for this one.
In limited, I have the same opinion of it.
Yeah, it's great.
So yeah, we got Fearless Fledgling for 1 and a white. It's a creature griffin at uncommon with it's 1/1 with a landfall of whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, put a +1/+1 counter on Fearless Fledgling. It gains flying until the end of turn. So landfall. This particular card is kind of hard to evaluate for standard. I don't know that this card fits into any particular deck right now. It doesn't really even fit into the Flyers deck because sometimes it doesn't have flying, which is really bad. But sometimes it does have flying. If you miss a land drop, it's pretty bad.
What kind of griffin doesn't naturally have flying? First off,
I mean, a fledgling apparently. So I don't know. It's kind of hard to evaluate this card. I think that it can have a big upside. Obviously, it gets better the longer the game goes on. The more lands you play, the later in the game it is. I think it's a C tier card. I think that there's going to be some silly people that make a deck where you just beat the heck out of them with a fledgling. And I think that it'll work sometimes. I don't think it's going to, get you to Mythic or anything like that, but I think C tier is fine.
In limited, this card's great. It dies to all of the removal spells, but so do most cards. If it goes unanswered, it's going to absolutely dominate a game. On average, you probably play 6 or 7 lands in a game, 4 of which will happen after turn 2. So you can get this bad boy up to a 5/5. I'm first picking this in some weaker packs. I don't think it's a bomb because if you draw it in the late game, it does nothing. But you're playing this in every white deck every time. It's a B.
And finally, we get to a card.
I'm
excited about. Yeah.
And I can talk about all these cards in limited. Welcome to the better format.
Whatever, dude. Felidar Retreat. It's a 3 and 1 white for a rare enchantment with landfall. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, choose one. Create a 2/2 white cat beast creature token, or put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. Those creatures gain vigilance until the end of turn. This card is this card's going to 100% see play. It's going to happen a lot in life gain decks just because they want cats anyway. It's going to be it's going to see play in a lot of different decks. I don't know that there's a white landfall deck that's going to come out, but you're going to splash white in some of those landfall decks. It has so many options once you play it. It's 4 mana, which is kind of a downside. 4 mana to do nothing the turn it comes out. Unless you play a land, then it's 4 mana for a 2/2. It gets value progressively as the game goes on. The more lands you play, the better and better this card gets, the more and more value you get out of it. I say on average, if you can get 3 cats out of it or 3 +1/+1 counter triggers on it, it's probably going to pay for itself and be worth it because most of the time you don't see a 4 mana put 6 +1/+1 counters out or make 3 2/2s. I think it's going to be an inclusion in a lot of white decks. I mean, you can even see playing a control deck from here or there. You know, it gives you a board state without actually having to commit anything too crazy to the board. I give this an A. I think this is a great card for white. I also think it's a very interesting card. Anytime you get anything flexible, especially in white with flexibility, it's crazy. So
yeah, for limited, I like this card as well. 4 mana, do nothing the turn it comes down does really suck, and that is a big drawback. I think that's going to keep it from getting an A for me. But if you play it on turn 5 before you play your land, it is 4 mana, get a cat, or 4 mana, pump your team, and that's very good. Especially with the value over time. I think you're first picking this a lot of the time, actually. I don't think it's a mighty bomb that's going to win you every game, but if you get it down and you're not bleeding out from all of your stab wounds from earlier, you're going to do just fine, and it'll probably take over the game. You know what? I'm going to go ahead and give it an A. You're going to first pick this. It's going to win you games.
It's an attrition card for sure.
Yeah.
And the fact that you can build around it in standard makes it better in standard because you can support the card a little bit better. But yeah, I like the card. I think it's a great card.
Next up, we have Journey to Oblivion. For 4 and a white, you get an uncommon enchantment that this spell costs 1 less to cast for each creature in your party. And when Journey to Oblivion enters the battlefield, exile target non-land permanent and opponent controls until Journey to Oblivion leaves the battlefield.
It's a very expensive most of the time.
Yeah.
Sometimes way cheaper. What's it called? Oblivion Ring?
Oblivion Ring costs 3.
Yeah. So sometimes it's an Oblivion Ring.
When it's an Oblivion Ring, it's very good.
Yeah. Sometimes it's cheaper. Sometimes it's more expensive. I don't think you're going to run this over Oblivion. I don't think you're going to run this over any other removal in white. I think there are better things to do it. It hits Ugin, which is great. Hits a lot of their backline stuff that you can't normally touch in white, unless you run the crappy enchantment or artifact removal spells that they have. So I think that it sees play sometimes if you open a lot of them and you don't have access to any of the other removal. I think that it's probably a D tier card because I don't even know that I want to use a slot.
You can come into the shot a little more if you want, man.
I don't think that it sees a lot of play in the even in the party deck. Like if the party deck is a thing, I don't think I'm wasting a slot for Journey to Oblivion unless I'm playing against a lot of Ugins.
Or if you can always get it to cost 1.
I mean, if you can always get it to cost 1, it's pretty good. But so we'll say it's a D tier card with a ceiling of C tier. So.
In limited, this card's great. It's unconditional removal. You get anything off the board that's troubling you. A lot of time it's going to cost 4 instead of 5. Sometimes it's going to cost 3, and you're super stoked when it costs 3. Yeah, this is fine. It's premium removal. You want this in your deck. You want a couple copies of this in your deck. When it costs 5, it does suck, by the way. When it costs 5, it's not very good. But when it costs 3 or 4, it's quite good. It's a B in limited, for sure.
And that's the thing with the party cards is that I kind of...
Right, like if you get there, they're good, but are you going to get there?
You're going to have a range, like I said.
In limited, I think it's going to be easy to get to.
We got Kabir Outrider, a 3 and a white for a human warrior creature. At common, it's 3/3. When Kabir Outrider enters the battlefield, target creature gets +1/+1 until the end of turn for each creature in your party. Man, like, if I'm going to say it, if the party deck is good, I'm completely wrong about the entire set. But I think this card is bad. It's 4 mana 3/3 that gives something +1/+1 all the time, and sometimes more. I think that there are better cards to do it than this. It does fit a warrior slot in your party deck, but I think there are better warriors to put in it for the slot. I think it's way better in limited than it is in standard. So I think it's a D tier card. Because there's the possibility that it goes into a warrior deck or that it goes into the party deck, but I think it's D tier.
Yeah, so commit to your guns, man. This card sucks. Hit it. Don't be afraid to make big statements.
Well, I'm gonna
call it like it is.
I'm gonna keep making the statements I'm making. So.
In limited, this card's fine. 4 mana 3/3 is not a great stat line, but it's not the worst either. And it lets you potentially get an attack through. +1/+1 will usually be enough to get you in, and especially if you play it on turn 4. If you can get it to say +2/+2 or +3/+3, it's gonna do fine. It's not insane, and you're gonna cut this for better cards, but it's fine. It's a C. Might be a D. But I think it's fine. I'll play it. Kitesail Cleric. For a white, you get a 1/1 core cleric creature at uncommon with kicker for 2 and a white with flying, and when Kitesail Cleric enters the battlefield, if it was kicked, tap up to 2 target creatures.
I think generally speaking that kicker cards are overpriced for their effects just because there's flexibility there. So I think that in a vacuum, the kicker effect for 3 mana, if it was in blue, it probably would cost 3. I think it's okay. It's on a 1/1 with flying, so just a 1/1 flyer is pretty good. A 4 mana 1/1 with flying that taps 2 creatures is worse. I don't think it's worth the bundle cost. I'm trying to think of what you would play it in. You could play it in the UW Flyer deck, I guess. But I think that, I mean, what does it have to go up against? Guildmother or something like that? It's, I don't know. I think it's probably a C tier card at best. I think in certain situations it might swing the game for you late game, but I don't think it's very good.
In limited, the flexibility of it's actually a lot better than it would be in standard. A 1 mana 1/1 flyer in limited is going to see play anyway in any aggressive deck. If you can play this on turn 1, it's going to get a few attacks in before it becomes irrelevant, and that's awesome. And if you draw it in the late game, you can tap your opponent's creatures down and go in for lethal. This card's awesome. You're going to play it. You're going to cut 2 and 3 drops for it. It's really great. It's a B for sure. You're going to first pick it in some weaker packs if you're already in white. B, easy.
Core Blade Master, 1 in a white for a 1/1 core warrior at uncommon with double strike. Equipped warriors you control have double strike. Okay, a few things to go over here. So it always has double strike. Equipped warriors you control have double strike. Um, it fills a slot in the party deck. It can fit into like a Boros warrior deck pretty easily. The thing about it though is that the equipment suck. Most generally speaking, if I'm talking about like overall, I'm not impressed by any of the equipment really. Like none of it's like holy shit. We don't got any like crazy swords or anything like that in this set. They're okay. And that diminishes the value of this card. A 2-mana 1/1 with double strike has seen play in older sets, but the fact that it gives other things double strike is also a plus side. I don't know. It's hard to evaluate just because the equipment, I don't value it very high. I think that in the equipment deck, it's going to be very good, and I think that's the only time you ever play it. So I think in the equipment deck is probably a B tier card, and you include 4 of it in it. It enables that deck to work because now all of a sudden your crappy equipment also gives things double strike. So it's like every equipment you have gives creature double strike. While this is out, so I think a B tier card in that specific deck. In a vacuum, though, I don't think it's very good. But
and in limited, this card is also going to underperform a lot of the times. A 2-mana 1/1, even with double strike, doesn't affect the board very much. You can kind of think of it as a 2-mana 2/1. It just trades a lot of the time, but if you really get there on warriors, equipment, or ways to simply make this guy bigger, maybe +1/+1 counters and stuff, it can do better. But at its floor, it's a D. If you really get there, you can make it better, but we'll leave that to you to decide in your own drafts. It's a D on its own. Don't take it unless you've already got help with it.
Yeah.
Next up, Core Celebrant. For 2 and a white, you get a 1/4 Core Cleric creature at common. Whenever Core Celebrant or another creature enters the battlefield under your control, you gain 1 life.
I think this is one of the few commons I think is actually going to go into the Cleric deck. It's going to go into the mono white life gain deck. It's a 1/4, so it's going to stick around. It's actually pretty hard to remove. Red has a tough time removing it. And I think, yeah, most of the time it deals 3 damage, 2 damage. So it's going to 2-for-1 a lot of the time. It's not a card that's going to win you the game by itself, but with veto, it's better. So
yeah,
in the Cleric deck, it actually does a lot more work. So I think this is a C tier card. I think there are better Clerics for the deck, but I think that a lot of the time this one makes the cut. So C tier.
Yeah, in limited, a 3-mana 1/4 is no joke. It'll go off the ground pretty good. It'll force your opponents to make a bad attack and then also use a removal spell on it. There are some removal spells in red and black that just absolutely take care of it. But whatever, they use a removal spell on your 1/4. That's great. And it has upside of gaining you life over time. It's also a Cleric, which fills that slot. This card's fine. You're going to be playing it more often than you're going to be cutting it. I give it a C.
A white common that doesn't suck.
Yeah.
Legion Angel for 2 and 2 white. You get a 4/3 Angel Warrior at rare with flying, and when Legion Angel enters the battlefield, you may reveal a card you own named Legion Angel from outside the game and put it into your hand. The fact that it puts it into your hand and not onto the battlefield is a huge drawback. I think if it actually did that, it'd probably be a 6-cost card instead of a 4-cost card. It's an Angel Warrior, so it fills a warrior slot for your party. It also lets you put a bunch of Legion Angels in your sideboard and get them from out of the game, so you really are running a 63 card deck instead of a 60 card deck. And you're always guaranteed to have a Legion Angel after you play the first one. I think it's a fun card.
It's definitely a fun card.
I don't think it really does a whole lot by itself. You put a 4-mana 4/3 with flying out. It doesn't really do much for the board. You have to pay 8 mana to really get the train rolling. I want to like this card. I really do. Just because anytime you can get something from outside the game and bring it into the game, I think that's a pretty cool effect. I mean, we don't need to talk about, Fae of Wishes, but like Fae of Wishes is a broken card just because it can do that. I think that this is probably a D tier card. I don't think it makes a lot into it. And I think if you open it, you're gonna be pretty upset that this was your rare in your pack, especially if you only open one. So yeah, I think it's D tier. Like I said, I really want to like it, but I just can't.
In limited, this is a 4-mana 4/3 warrior with flying. Sure, you're gonna play this. It's gonna be good. In limited, you'd probably pay 5 mana for a 4/3 flyer just naturally. So it's aggressively costed. It's a rare. It's no bomb by any means, but it definitely makes the cut every time in your white-based decks. And if you get multiples of this, you're just gonna play them all on your main board. So that the text doesn't really matter. But a 4-mana 4/3 flyer is still pretty darn good. Honestly, you're probably first picking removal spells over this thing sometimes. I want to say B, but it might even just be C. But since it's so aggressive, 4-mana 4/3, it's a B. Just because it's 4 mana.
See, he wants to like it too. But...
Just because, yeah, no. Just if it were any more mana, it would not be a B. But for 4 mana,
if it said flyer, puts it onto the battlefield,
it'd be broken though.
It would be insane.
It'd be broken.
if that was not put into your hand, the card would be way better, and would actually probably be worth the rare slot. But
yeah,
anyway.
it's an uncommon, but it's a rare. Anywho, Luminarch Aspirant. For 1 and a white, you get a 1/1 human cleric at rare. Now, at the beginning of your combat on your turn, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control.
This is a playable cleric.
Yeah, this card's good.
It is good. I think it takes your shitty clerics that you play in the white-black cleric deck and makes them forces on the board. Makes them so your opponent has to deal with them. This plus veto... giving something lifelink and putting a +1/+1 counter on it, just kind of making it bigger, making your clerics harder to kill. I think it's got a lot of good things going for it. I mean, even just it by itself in a white weenies deck, white aggro deck, this goes into every white deck actually. So, and I don't think you'd be upset about it. Playing a 2-mana 1/1 on turn 2 kind of sucks, especially if you don't have a turn 1 play.
It's a 2-mana 2/2.
Oh, it is. Yeah, it can. You're right. Didn't realize that, but still 2-mana 2/2. On turn 2, in standard, when you can play 2-mana things that just do broken things. I don't know.
Prince.
Yeah, Charm Prince. Scry. Charm Prince. So yeah, and I think it's pretty good. I think this is a solid B tier card. I don't know that it like completely defines a deck, but curving out with this on turn 2 and maybe even another one on turn 3 that, I mean, it's just, yeah, it's B tier. I'm sticking with it.
And in limited, this is going to take over the game. If your opponents cannot deal with this quickly, first off, it's going to make itself stronger if that's all you've got. So even in top deck mode, this thing grows itself, which is very good. If it didn't, it would not be nearly as good. But because it also can grow itself, this card's you're going to run away with games if your opponents don't answer it. This is a bomb, which is weird for a 2-mana 1/1 to be a bomb, but this is a bomb. It's an A tier limited card. Pick it. Win the games. Feel good. It's a cleric. Awesome. It's your turn.
Yeah, as a thought.
I mean, it doesn't matter.
Makindi Ox, 4 and a white for a 4/4 creature Ox. At common, with landfall, whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, tap target creature and opponent controls. F. There's no way you're playing a 5-mana 4/4 in standard. If you are playing this card in a standard deck, you have the slowest deck in the history of the world. And I don't know what else to say about it. Like, it doesn't even have a good creature stat line. If this was a dog or a cat, maybe playable, but it's not a dog or a cat, it's an ox.
Yeah. And even in limited, this card's not that good. It's not an F. You're gonna want to cut this. 5-mana 4/4 is not a great stat line, but the landfall ability is relevant. Tapping a creature an opponent controls can get you through, but boy is it slow, and a lot of times at that stage in the game you really don't want to be drawing or playing lands. Yeah, you know what, it might even be an F still. The ability brings it up to a D for me. You're going to play it if you really need cards. So D.
Yeah.
But you're cutting this 95% of the time.
Yeah, it's a pack filler, man.
Maul of the Skyclaves. For 2 and a white, you get an artifact equipment at rare. When Maul of the Skyclaves enters the battlefield, attach it to target creature you control. And you're going to see this on a lot of the equipment where it just comes down onto stuff. Equipped creature gets +2/+2, has flying and first strike, and it also has equip for 2 and 2 white.
So equipment is in this set is very hard to evaluate. Basically, all of the equipment, their power level is based off of Nahiri's power level and how I evaluate Nahiri. I don't think that there's enough strong equipment to make Nahiri an extremely prevalent deck. I think people are going to make the equipment deck. I think it's going to be there. I think that the equipment is more or less going to be splashed in a Boros warrior deck with Nahiri and some equipment thrown in there. The fact that this attaches to a creature when it comes out and you don't have to pay the equip cost the first time makes it way better. Flying first strike and +2/+2 is nothing to shrug about. It definitely makes a whatever creature you put it on better. Unless, of course, you already equip it to a flying first striker, then it's garbage. But you wouldn't do that. So I think, I don't know, this is tough. I think this is probably a D tier card. I want to say probably high D, low C, just because if the Nahiri deck is way better than I think it is, it's gonna be one of the ones that you include in the deck for sure. But if Nahiri's isn't a very playable deck, it's gonna be absolute garbage. So
in limited, this is obviously great. 3 mana +2/+2 flying in first strike is good, and the fact that it sticks around after that creature has already met its demise in order to buff more creatures because it's an equipment, it's way better. In limited, the equipment, even the crappy ones, are going to be better than any enchantment aura because you don't run the risk of getting 2-for-1 when you play it. You do have to invest some mana into it later, but usually you can find a turn where you have that laying around. This is going to take over games. It's going to win you a lot of games. It's a bomb. It's an A. Pick it, play it, win your games.
all right, Mesa Lynx. It's 1 and a white for a creature cat at common. As long as it's not your turn, it gets +0/+2. It's a 2/1 stat line. So yeah, this is F. I don't ever see you playing this even in the cat deck. I mean, if you're really, really pressed for cats, it fills a slot, but I don't think you're gonna ever play this card for any reason.
Well, in limited, it's a 2 mana 2/1 that on your opponent's turn is a better blocker. It's
That's a confusing card.
You do not want to play this card if you do not have to. It doesn't fill any of your roles, cleric, warrior, none of that. It's an F, and everything except the most aggressive white decks where you're just like, play every 2-drop I could possibly draft. Then it's only a D still. So F, a lot of times don't take
It's
this.
a confusing card because it's got a 2/1 stat line, which means it's aggressive, but
it's also defensive.
It's also defensive because it's a 2/3.
Because a 2 mana 2/3 is pretty good. It blocks really well.
But you don't ever. But you played on. I don't know. It gets killed by too much. I don't know what their thought process was. It's another pack filler.
Yeah. Nahiri's Binding for 1 and 2 white. You get an enchantment aura at common that says enchant creature or planeswalker. Enchanted permanent can't attack or block, and its activated abilities cannot be activated. Pacifism plus.
So you can put this on a planeswalker. You can put this on an Ugin. I think in the right control deck, it actually has a slot just because of that. Do you want this instead of Banishing Light? Probably not, just because it's got the double white cost. I don't think it's a bad card. It in certain situations can win you the game, I guess, against exactly Ugin or maybe a Basri or something like that. If you're gonna try to hit a planeswalker with this most of the time. You're not gonna want to hit a creature with it unless it's like an Elder Gargaroth or something, a crazy bomb that's just gonna win them the game. I think it's C. I think it's a comfortable C. And in certain control matchups, it's probably even a B tier card. So.
Yeah, I hate this card first off because Nahiri is beating Jace's ass. which I'm not a fan of. I'm a Jace fanboy, y'all. Not okay with this card art. But in limited, this is a solid B. It's premium removal. It gets walkers, which is even better. Not a whole lot of stuff usually kills walkers. And it shuts down activated abilities. Pacifism Plus, I would have played 7 copies of Pacifism in my deck. I play 7 copies of Nihiri's Binding if I've got it. Solid B.
Paired Tactician. We got 2 and a white for a 3/2 human warrior creature. Whenever Paired Tactician and at least one other warrior attacks, put a +1/+1 counter on Paired Tactician. This is one of the cards that actually makes the Boros warrior deck not suck. It's a very aggressively statted card. It gets bigger the more times you attack with it. And in the Boros warrior deck, you're going to want to attack all the time. I think this is a pretty solid card for that deck. So I'd say it's probably a B tier card. I'm going to include it in mine when I build it. I'm going to try not to cut it at all. It's better with wide boards, and you're gonna go wide in that deck. So yeah, B tier.
Yeah, and in limited, this card's gonna be just fine. You played Makeshift Battalion, which makes you attack with 3 creatures at once to get +1/+1 counters. This one only requires you to have 1 other creature. That creature does have to be a warrior, but there are other warriors in white, and when you pair it with certain other colors, like red, it's going to be very easy to get another warrior on the board, even as early as turn 3. So I think this card's going to be great. It can win you games. It's a B. Next up, we have Practiced Tactics. For 1 white, it's an instant. But choose target attacking or blocking creature. Practice Tactics deals damage to that creature equal to twice the number of creatures in your party. A little confusing words there, but it, you know.
So you have somebody in your party, 1 mana, deal 2 damage. So it's a white shock. Not horrible. Anytime you get anything more than 1 person in your party, now it's a bolt plus.
Yeah, better than lightning bolt in white. Well, it only gets attacking or blocking creatures.
It's true, so it's a combat trick, which is different because you can't hit face with it. I'm a broken record. I don't think the party deck is going to be very good. I think that if you play the party deck, this is probably going to make one of the slots just because it keeps your party members alive, and that's really what you want. You want your guys to stick. Anytime one of your party members gets removed and you don't have an immediate backup for it, it's going to ruin the entire synergy of your deck. But I don't think that you're going to put a 4 of in this in any of your decks. This is it's a D tier card, maybe a C tier card. So we'll say D plus again. I don't know. I don't think it's very. I just really think the party mechanic stinks. So
in limited, this card's fine. If you pick it, you really want to make sure you're getting there on party members. You want most, if not all, of your creatures to fit, one of those categories. Because if you don't have anything out, then it's bad. It's bad in top deck mode. Unless you get there on party members, you don't want to play this, which I think makes it overall a D. But if you get there on party members, you'll play it most of the time, and it'll be a C. But at its floor, it's a D. You guys couldn't hear that. Cats are making weird noises out there.
Did you lock the door when you came in?
Yeah.
All right, we've got Pressure Point. 1 and a white instant spell. Tap target creature, draw a card. It's a white card that draws you a card. It has a meh effect. Technically, you could tap your own creature if you really are.
You really need to for whatever reason.
It's not a may ability, so you have to tap a creature in order to play it. So you have to have a target. I don't. It's got draw a card, so it's an F plus, I guess.
In limited, it's fine actually. Tapping a creature gets you in for a turn or keeps you alive for a turn, prevents a pesky thing from attacking. The fact that it cantrips and replaces itself makes it quite a bit better. I think if it didn't cantrip on itself, it wouldn't be very good. But because it does, you're probably going to play this more often than you're going to cut it, surprisingly. C. But don't, it's not a amazing C. Cut it if you got better stuff. But it's not horrible to play. Sure.
The cantrip makes it an F plus.
Well, yeah. F. Welcome to standard where the commons suck.
Yeah.
Prowling Felidar. For 3 and a white, you get a 2/3 cat beast at common. It has vigilance and landfall. Whenever land enters the battlefield under your control, put a +1/+1 counter on Prowling Felidar.
You're going to play this in the cat deck. You're 100% going to play this in the cat deck. There's no reason not to, except for there's a 4-mana 2/3, which kind of stinks. So a lot of the time, it's a turn 5 4-mana 3/4 with vigilance, which is significantly better. It's amazing what a +1/+1 counter will do. So I think it's a C tier card just because people are going to play the cat deck. If it didn't have that creature line, I think it would be probably D tier, like low D tier, just because of what it is. But the cat makes it significantly better. So,
and in limited, this card's gonna take over the games if it gets to stick around for a long time. It's a 4-mana 2/3 on its own, which makes it kind of suck in top deck mode. But if you do manage to get a couple of land falls, it can win you the game. You're probably not going to cut this card, especially if you need 4 drops. It's a C.
Common rarity.
Yeah, you're going to play that a lot of the time.
My turn?
Yeah.
That's what I thought. Resolute Strike. 1 white. Instant. Common. Target creature gets +2/+2 until the end of turn. If it's a warrior, you may attach equipment you control to it. F. Don't even want to talk about it. It's F.
In limited, giving something +2/+2 until end of the turn is a reasonable combat trick for 1, especially in white. Usually they don't get +2/+2. They usually just get +1/+1. If it's a warrior, you get to attach an equipment to it. That's going to happen sometimes, and then it's going to be pretty good. If you have warriors, it's especially better. But it doesn't blow me away. Give it a C. Next up, Seagate Banneret. For a white, you get a 1/2 core warrior at common with the ability to pay 4 and a white. Creatures you control get +1/+1 until end of turn.
I think out of the warriors that the 1-mana warriors that the warrior deck is going to play or the party deck is going to play, this one isn't horrible. The ability is very expensive, especially when you could just play a mouse and have the same ability if you have a land enter the field. I think that people will put it in the warrior deck, and I think that people will put it in the party deck. It's a D card. I mean, it's a 1-mana 1/2, so it deals with their 1-drops most of the time. Sometimes when it lasts until turn 5, it trades up. Most of the time, it's just going to be a chump blocker. Yeah, it's D.
And in limited, you're going to play this in your white aggro decks, no problem. You're not going to be overly excited to play it, and it might even get the chop sometimes. I want to give it a C, but the ability is just too expensive. I'm going to give it a D. You're going to cut it more often. You're next.
Shepherd of Heroes. Got 4 and a white for a Angel Cleric, a 3/4 at common with flying. And when a Shepherd of Heroes enters the battlefield, you gain 2 life for each creature in your party. It's 5 mana, 3/4. So it's an expensive 3/4 that gains you 2 life every time. That sometimes gains you 6 life, but most of the time it's 2, maybe 4.
So on average, 3.
3, yes. Sorry, I'm evaluating this on the fly. Like, I've seen this card, but I haven't really thought it out. I don't know. I think that this sees play in the cleric deck sometimes. I think it always sees play if you can. Okay, not always. I think it sees play in the party deck most of the time. I guess a C tier card. Just because it's not the worst common in white.
And in limited, it's a 5-mana 3/4 flyer. That's fine. It's not amazing, but it'll do the job when you need it to do the job. When you need a finisher, the fact that it heals you up a little bit means you can stay on the side that's attacking and really start pushing your guys through. It's fine. Solid, playable. Give it a C. Skyclave Apparition. For 1 and 2 white, you get a 2/2 core spirit creature at rare. When Skyclave Apparition enters the battlefield, exile up to 2 target non-land, non-token permanents you don't control with converted mana cost 4 or less. When Skyclave Apparition leaves the battlefield, the exiled card's owner create a XX blue illusion creature token where X is the converted mana cost of the exiled card.
It also says 1 target.
Oh, up to 1.
Yes.
Sorry, up to 1 target non-land, non-token permanent.
There's a lot going on with this card.
A lot of text.
So it exiles a non-land, non-token permanent of 4 or less. Gives you up to a 4/4 blue illusion creature token. Which is what you're gonna want to hit it with most of the time. It does not come back into the field after it's exiled, so it's just gone forever.
Yeah, and you get a 2/2 body with it.
You get a 2/2 body with it. It's a removal spell on a stick that sometimes gets, makes a dude for them. Sometimes makes a dude for you. I don't know. This is a tough card to evaluate. I'm trying to think of situations where you'll play this. Maybe if you have like an Omen of the Sun out, or any enchantment that's sticking around. Maybe even if you're playing one of the, if you're playing like Birth of Meletis and you've got it on the board and you really don't want to gain the 2 life for some reason. You created the 0/4, you play this afterwards, get a 2/2 out of it. I don't know. That doesn't sound that bad when I put it like that.
Well, it's a permanent you don't control.
Oh.
So you cannot get your own stuff. Yeah, there's a lot of text there. It's easy to get lost in it.
Okay, so it's on turn 3. You're dealing with their turn 2 and turn 1 play.
Sometimes their turn 3 play.
Yeah, sometimes their turn 3 play, up to their turn 4 play. If but it also just gets them a dude. It gets the opponent a dude every time. So I don't know. I don't think that's that good actually. If you could hit your own stuff with it, it'd be much better.
Yeah.
But you can't, so I guess C tier, maybe D tier.
Now it does only give them the dude when the thing dies.
Oh,
so it doesn't give it to him right away.
That's still not good though, because now it's gonna die.
It's a 2/2.
It's a 2/2. Yeah, I think it's a D. Just because I don't see, off the top of my head, I don't see any combos that like break this card. Right. But yeah, I guess, yeah, D tier.
In limited, it's quite a bit better. It's a 3-mana 2/2 that deals with an opponent's thing. Especially in top deck mode where you and your opponent are both top decking, they're not likely to find a way to kill it very quickly. Removal's a lot harder to come by. Just don't attack or block with your 2/2 when they have stuff, and you'll be fine. It basically is a 3-mana 2/2 that exiles something. Especially if you get a creature that is better than just an XX. Like if you get a 3-mana 3/3 with upside, and then your thing dies and it just turns into a 3/3. That's great still.
I just thought of a combo with it actually.
Of course you did.
Yorion. So you play this out, deal with their thing, play Yorion a turn or 2 later, flash this up, create the token, it enters the battlefield, target the token.
Non-token permanent.
Fudge my life.
They thought of that.
Well,
in limited, it's a good removal spell, and you're going to pick it a lot of the time. Even first pick it a lot of the time. It's a B.
Never mind. It's got too many words on it.
It's F. I don't want to read.
It's got too many words on it, man. Non-token, non-land, permanent, you don't control. With converted mana cost 4 or less. Like,
yeah.
That's a very specific situation that you need to play.
What
that
the
card.
fuck did they print that for in
I have
standard?
no idea, man.
What are they targeting? What do they need to remove so badly in standard?
Hey, it does get rid of Uro.
It's true. Gets rid of Uro forever.
Gets rid of Uro forever and gives them a 3/3 instead of a 6/6. So I guess it's Uro removal. We'll give it a plus. Yeah. So we got Squad Commander, 3 and a white for a 3/3 Core Warrior at rare. When Squad Commander enters the battlefield, create a 1/1 Core Warrior creature token for each creature in your party. So minimum of 1. At the beginning of your combat, on your turn, if you have a full party, creatures you control get +1/+0 and gain indestructible until the end of turn. So this is one of the cards for the party mechanic that are payoff in white. Like, if you're playing the party deck, you're playing this card every time. You're trying to get to a full party, splashing blue or green to try to do it. The upside of this card is huge. Getting all your members in your party indestructible. The +1/+0 is kind of irrelevant unless, most of the time it's irrelevant, but can win you the game. I mean, you play this on turn 4 with 3 other party members. This completes your party, and you make 4 1/1s. That's huge. That's game winning right there. You play that, you win the game.
Yeah. Wipe the board or
yeah. And the fact
they either wipe the board or they lose.
The fact that it creates a 1/1 every time, no matter what. You play this on an empty board for 4 mana. It's a 4 mana 4/4 at the very least over 2 bodies, which is typically better than just having a 4/4.
A lot of times, yeah.
So I'm gonna say that this is an A tier card, and if the party deck is good, possibly an S tier card. If it's good, I think that when I build the party deck, this is going to be the centerpiece of it. So one of the centerpieces of it,
for sure. And in limited, this card's obviously quite good. 4 mana 3/3 that makes a 1/1 is fine. Anytime it makes more than 1/1/1, which I think you're going to be able to,
more than 1/1/1.
Yeah, that's a sentence you can say, and it makes sense. And I think you're going to be able to get it to make 2 1/1s a lot of the time. It's going to be very good. At the beginning of combat on your turn, if you have the full party, obviously that's insane. You're winning. Attack, do it, kill them all. But that's not going to happen very often. Even in limited, I don't think that's going to happen very often. It's not a bomb. It doesn't win the game by itself, but it's still pretty good, and you're not ever cutting this card. It's a B. Smite the Monstrous. For 3 and a white, you get an instant at common that says, destroy target creature with power 4 or greater.
F.
Yeah, I mean, even in limited, you're not going to play this very often. If you're really hurting for removal, sure. D. You're not always cutting it, but you're probably cutting it.
It's cost too much, man.
Yeah, it's very expensive.
Tazim Raptor. 2 and a white for a bird. 2/2 common. When Tazim Raptor enters the battlefield, you may return a land you control to its owner's hand. Please keep in mind, this is the only landfall support card in white. Of all of the cards that have landfall, this is the only one that allows you to return a card to your hand and get a landfall trigger.
Yes, the only one that lets you enable it more so.
It is... I know I'm not talking about limited here, but it's significantly better in limited than it is in standard. Doesn't make the cut into the Birds deck. The UW Flyers doesn't make that cut. 3 mana 2/2 with flying isn't going to do it. It's not going to get you there. You top deck this, it's really bad. I mean, unless you need a landfall trigger for something like the Fledgling, which I don't see why you would. Yeah, I think this is I'm going to give it a D tier just because it is the only landfall support that landfall has in white.
It's like fringe playable.
Yes, it's like maybe sometimes you'll play it. But I don't see it seeing very much play.
In limited, you're going to be happy with this. It's Windrake plus 3 mana for a 2/2 flyer as a standard rate. And the fact that it lets you bounce a land to your hand is pretty good. It's going to get your landfall triggers more. It's going to enable you to, on turn 4, spend 5 mana if you don't have an extra land. Or on turn 5, let's say, if you don't have a land, you've only got 4. You can pay 3, get this, bounce one of your tapped ones back to your hand, put it down, get a landfall trigger, and then also cast a 2-drop. Those types of things is what's going to make this card very, very strong, and limited especially. Yeah, it's solid playable. You're probably not going to cut it a lot of the time, which makes me almost want to put it to B, but if you don't have the landfall synergies to back it up, it might not make the cut to C, but a solid C. Last up, in white, Tazri, Beacon of Unity. For 4 and a white, you get a 4/6 legendary creature human warrior at Mythic Rare. And this spell costs 1 less to cast for each creature in your party. And then for either 2/blue hybrid, 2/black hybrid, 2/red hybrid, 2/green hybrid, you can look at the top 6 cards of your library. You may reveal up to 2 cleric, rogue, warrior, wizard, and or ally cards from among them and put them into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. What a mouthful!
Yeah, and it's also one of the only cards that has that cost. I think it's the only card in the game.
Yeah, that is a strange cost.
So, all right, I was talking about Squad Commander. If you're playing white, you're playing the party deck, you have to include this card. If you don't include this card, your deck is not gonna fill out. It costs 8 mana sometimes to search it up. 5-color party deck might.
I don't think its second ability is why it's good.
No, the first ability, being able to play a 2-mana 4/6,
or in incredible circumstances, a 1-mana 4/6.
Yeah, but very rarely.
Yeah, 2-mana 4/6 most of the time. 3-mana 4/6 even.
The fact that so you're gonna be splashing red, you're gonna be splashing green, one of those two, or blue. Most of the time, you're not gonna splash black for the party deck, just because it doesn't have enough going on for it. So most of the time, its ability is gonna cost you 7 mana to get 2 cards off your deck. It's a mythic rare. I'm sorry, it's until I see the party mechanic go into play, it's really hard to evaluate it because there's nothing like it in Magic.
Yeah.
I think that this is a C+. Just because most of the time that ability is going to cost 7 mana. Sometimes it costs 6 mana. So that's a total of, on average, 10 mana you're spending on Tazri.
Like 4/6, 10 mana 4/6, draw 2.
Mm-hmm. I don't think that's that good.
Draw 2 cards that you pick.
It's true, yeah.
But I mean,
and in a deck full,
or sometimes not draw any if you whiff.
Yeah, you could whiff. And paying 7 mana to whiff, or paying 6 mana to whiff, is pretty bad. If all those 2s were replaced by 1s, this card would be significantly better. So yeah, we'll say it's a C+. Fringe B tier. I think you'll play a 1 of, maybe 2 of in the party deck. I don't think you're gonna play a 4 of.
And in limited, this is a 5 mana 4/6 with upside. Sometimes it's cheaper. A lot of the times, I'd even say it's a 4 mana 4/6. And then if you can get it more cheaper than that, it's amazing. So you're gonna play this. And most of the time, the second ability there is gonna cost you 7 because you're probably playing a 2-color deck in limited, and that's so expensive. I mean, you're gonna do it. Don't get me wrong, but it's on the back burner for the card. It doesn't make it incredibly better. But a 4 mana 4/6 is still really playable, and you're not gonna cut it. but you're also not going to first pick it, and it's also not a game-winning bomb on its own, and that's what you want out of your mythic rares if you're picking this card over removal spells especially. But you're not cutting it. It's a B, not a bomb. It's not taking over the game. But
if they had vigilance, it'd be better. Even everything else, if you just gave it vigilance, it'd be better.
if you gave it vigilance, it'd probably be a bomb.
Exactly. Like one more word on that card would do it.
Yeah, but I don't think it's taken over any games. It's big, it's annoying, but if you can play it on turn 3, it's insane. But meh.
All right, so that's all of the white cards. We're gonna stop the video here before we continue.
I think it's best to
blue.
break it up into colors as well. And instead of doing our favorite for each rarity, do you just want to give our favorite
as well.
per color?
Yeah, might as well.
So what's your favorite? Is it? Are we picking favorites or are we picking strongest or both?
I mean, it doesn't matter. Whatever you prefer, just whatever you want to draw attention to out of this entire set. I think the coolest card is by far Angel of Destiny.
Agreed. Do
I think it's the best card? Probably not. The best card in white? I don't even know, man.
Coolest one, Tazri Beacon of Unity for the fucking wild text, for the hybrid mana cost.
Yeah,
you go Wizards, do something weird. One of the most powerful white cards. If I'm ignoring Angel of Destiny for obvious reasons, because it does wild stuff. And I think you're on the right page here. Luminarch Aspirant and Maul of the Skyclaves, I think, are both pretty good.
I think that this is probably the strongest card in white. And a 2-mana 1/1 being the strongest card says a lot about the card.
It's really good. Don't get me wrong, that's a great card.
I mean, you can play this in white green counters, and there's a lot of support for white green counters.
Sure is.
It's a 4 of in that deck, and that deck, I mean, freaking white green mid range.
Conclave Mentor.
Yeah, exactly.
So good.
Now this card is insane.
Yeah, now you're getting 2+1 counters. Yeah,
and it happens on the beginning of your combat turn, so it actually happens the turn it comes out.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's good. Yeah.
It's I don't really see. I want to like Core Blade Master, but I just don't. I can't. But yeah, so I think that those are the two like standout cards for me. The strongest card in the set is definitely Cliffhaven Sellsword.
Duh.
I mean, 3/1. How do you even deal with that?
Thank you guys so much for watching. Leave a like if you liked the video. Comment on what your favorite or most powerful white card is, and subscribe if you want to see more Magic the Gathering content. We're gonna upload quite frequently. We're gonna try and get these up on a regular basis for these reviews here. Try and get them up quick, hopefully before the whole set comes out. But stay tuned, and bye bye.
Bye bye.